Alright, everybody, it's been quite a while. I'm not gonna say that it wasn't entirely because of laziness, crippling depression, being an essential worker during the coronavirus, so you're working even more for no extra pay. Isn't that always wonderful? You can't see my microphone, but I was just leaning into it. The webcam is because I have it enabled in OBS, and for some reason, whenever I take the webcam out of the picture, I get this weird little bug where it just screws up my entire audio quality, even though the audio isn't running through the webcam. Imagine that. So I just need to play with OBS to fix it. I don't even know. So anyways, it's been quite a while. I've changed my appearance. Yet again. That promotion where they gave you Fantasias for subscribing per month. You know, I can't resist it. Plus, I was getting some hate mail for being a Rogedran. And if any of you play Rogedran, women especially, don't let it affect you like it affected me. Anyways, so I'm not going to be queuing up to do this dungeon. I might actually be queuing up to do this dungeon. Command missions. Yeah, Halatali, there we are. So I can actually run this with some NPCs. It's part of the weird Squadron system. I haven't fully utilized it, but it's nice for doing videos like this because NPCs they create some interesting moments. And you don't have to deal with like the healers that are constantly healing. Once again, this is the dungeon Halatali. We're going to ignore these orders. It's essentially, you can tell them to attack, you can tell them to run away, you can tell them to use the limit break, but we don't use limit breaks around here. So Halatali, it's oh, my game is not liking me today. Halatali is a dungeon based off of actually kind of like the Gladiator story quest line. It's an arena for up-and-coming gladiators to test their might. Assuming I remember that right. It's pretty basic. There's actually some interesting mechanics to this dungeon, like these gas bomb patrols are always fun because they'll eventually start to detonate, and that's never a good time. But if you ever want to learn how to actually tank very well with not great DPS or great healers, I highly recommend doing these Squadron command missions. And don't tell your squadron to do anything. Let them do their own thing. And you'll quickly see how much it helps your NPCs to be doing stuff like using your cooldowns, optimizing your DPS. Very hard to do at these low levels. So that door opens up at a later point in the dungeon, so you're just going to run through this first open door. At the start, it's pretty basic. You're just going to be fighting off enemies. I think part of the issue is some of my settings in OBS are making this recording take a lot of my processing power. And, you know, I don't want to say I'm not technically inclined because I am. I don't play around with OBS enough to really know the ins and outs, and it's been a while since I looked up the guide. Yeah, this tank talk's gonna be a bit more casual in the mechanics for a while. Yeah, this first part is a very basic. Grab the enemies, hold them still. Another reason I've taken so long to upload a video is I've been leveling up my gatherers and crafters some, and when you're trying not to spend a ton of gil to get gear or just buy your turn-ins, it gets to be a very lengthy process. And my fiance and I finally finished Stormblood. We're in the post scenario now, and we're currently working on doing the Alpha and Delta escape, all those raids. I don't know if I've mentioned this, we are doing a story playthrough. We had originally characters all the way up, I think halfway through Stormblood. By the time Shadowbringers launched, we never read the story, so we went back to reread the story. So this is the first boss. At first, it's going to be very basic. For the tank, it actually is. You are just going to sit here and hold this enemy. Now the thing about this is while you're sitting here holding the enemy, some little sprites will spawn from all around, like that Demantis. I don't know where it is, but it is up to the DPS to kill those, and I don't know where they are. Oh, I see them. I just tried telling them to engage over there. Hopefully they... I think I'm gonna have to tell them individually. Yeah, so this is a very bad dungeon to be running with these guys, but I guess you will get to see the results of not doing that. For each one that reaches that middle, it does pretty decent amount of magical damage to everybody. And these Noxious especially, they take a couple more hits, so you really need to focus them down. They do a ton of damage if they make it. So here's to hoping that I think Square Enix actually programmed them to try at least to do that mechanic. I certainly hope so. This is a mechanic that occurs in the last boss as well. It's the classic case of introduce something early to bring it back later. Now, once you kill that, there's actually a little rift there that you have to go through. So, a lot of people get lost on that. And if there's a newbie that doesn't teleport with you, just tell them, hey, go through the blue fire thingy, because the only way to get back is to use your return, and that's not always available to you. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I normally will big pull this, and I'm gonna not try that with these NPCs. As much as I love Cecily, she's my girl, she's not the best. So for this part of the dungeon, there's these chain winches. Every time you pull one, it'll spawn either sprites, a bomb, or I think one of them has a chest. Or nothing. I think nothing is an option too. So you're just gonna pull the winch when you're out of combat, And that's a very important thing. You want to make sure you are out of combat. If a DPS starts pulling one, get ready to pull whatever enemy it spawns. And I am drinking Monster. I'm not a hardcore gamer. I just worked a 12-hour shift last night. You know how it be. Gotta get my Final Fantasy in before I go to work today, so I gotta have some extra energy in the morning. So these enemies do apply a poison. It is up to the healer to remove that poison, thanks to cross-class abilities like Stone Skin and Isuna being removed from tanks. Thank you. I think that was Heaven's Ward that killed that one, or it might have been Stormblood. Yep, see, there's that treasure coffer. No, Heaven's Ward removes Stone Skin. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I've ranted about Stone Skin. I'm not going to go into that rant again. Square Enix knows what they did to me. They broke my heart. They ruined my trust for the first time. It wouldn't be the last time. The Dancer being a DPS was a pretty big blow to me, but I always find it weird to see what these DPS decide to attack. I don't do this too often with the squadrons. I'm gonna use it for a lot of these lower level dungeons, if only because I don't always have the time to wait in the queue to get one specific dungeon, because even though I'm a tank, it'll take 10 minutes to get one of these specific lower level dungeons. And then I get all these people in there leveling roulettes. What if I want to show off something optional, you know? These AI don't care, they'll come with me. So one thing to note is these enemies actually do quite a bit of damage. And I do struggle to big pull these without ensuring that I'm using a defensive cooldown and that the healer knows what they're doing. Look at that, we already have a limit break. I wonder if it charges up faster with this. Another chain winch, you gotta pull it. There's 5 of them in total. Makes this a little bit of a boring part of the dungeon. But from this dungeon on is when you really start to see mechanics of dungeons being introduced. Like boss fights will almost always involve positioning or watching for ads for the most part, or special abilities you actually have to worry about. There's nothing down there but a treasure chest. I'm not gonna go grab it. I have no need for an ether. I love how they just lag behind on that. I'll use all my defensive abilities. Cecily, please heal me. I like to focus down these pythons first, because of their poison. I'm not big on poisons. I find healers often don't cleanse them, and that's an issue. I don't know why it makes their job harder for not cleansing. You would think it'd be obvious to cleanse the poison, but a lot of healers are either in that gotta DPS mindset or the I gotta just non-stop spam cure 1 until I get my free cure 2, or if I need to, I'll throw a regen. That doesn't apply to Astrologians or Scholars, because they have different healing abilities with different mechanics. Scholars, I think, spam DPS the most, which is perfectly fine because they have a pet that actually heals you. Fairly okay. Small pulls, the pet's usually more than enough. You throw in like 1 or 2 heals, and that's good. I want to talk a little bit of blasphemy here, though. I'm actually thinking of leveling up Red Mage as a DPS class. And I mean, you look at my classes. I'm starting to level all the tanks. I've got Scholar. I toyed with Archer. I started Dancer. That's from leveling Scholar. I'm missing a chain, aren't I? Yeah, but that one right over there. So yeah, I do not DPS, but I've been tempted. I've been tempted by that Red Mage. I don't like these sprites. I believe this is... No, I was gonna say, I think this is the last dungeon before I get my full DPS combo, but that is most definitely a lie. Level 30 is when I get my most basic form. So, once you pull that chain, this is where I have to get very careful with my commands. This enemy is a little lightning lizard. So, at first, no issue. You're just gonna pull him all the way over to this ramp. And then from there, you're just gonna basic tank, spank. Disengage, y'all, disengage. Yeah, that worked. Alright, and then he's gonna spawn lightning sprites. And he's gonna throw out some AoEs. That big purple pool of water is now electrified water, and it will do a fairly decent chunk of damage to anybody standing inside. Can they dodge AoEs? Wow. I don't know why I expected them to not be able to dodge the AoE. Square Enix didn't program them to be useless. They're also not helping me until I tell them to re-engage, but I'm afraid if I tell them to re-engage, they're gonna just run into that electrified water and start killing themselves. Once you kill that last wave of sprites, enemy, hear the water drops, re-engage, and I believe he does that twice. You can damage... Actually, I take that back. I'm not for certain if you can damage him. I'm gonna check. For instructional purposes, AI healer can't complain. Disengage. Yeah, no, he's definitely invulnerable during that. They're not taking damage from that. I don't think they suffer from the electrocution. Wow. You know, I gotta say, it's nice that they acknowledge that their AI is so dumb that they won't do the mechanics, so they just don't put the mechanics on the AI. Hey, guys, can you... can you not attack the invulnerable boss? Alright, there we go. And I'm gonna face tank that. That is the only mechanic of this boss. He does that twice, and then you're all done. Once again, he opens up a little ethereal flow you have to go through. People will forget to go through it. It's big, it's obvious, but not obvious enough for everybody. And again, grab, grab. That treasure coffer out there is a trap. Your DPS most likely will fall for it. Not to hate on DPS, just saying, oftentimes I'll be sitting here holding down these enemies and a DPS, specifically my fiance, will forget that it's a trap. She'll go running out, she'll grab it. And then it spawns quite a few enemies, so we don't mess around with that. So you just pull those guys, clear that, ignore the chest, as tempting as it is, and you reach the final boss. Now the final boss has a couple of phases, including invulnerability phases. It kind of combines... Hey guys, attack. Oh, it combines all the mechanics from the previous two bosses. So, small fire circle, he's currently invulnerable, but he'll spawn fire sprites and these little demantis. Oh, they're not, oh no, disengage guys, disengage. They're not programmed to handle this one. Oh boy. Oh, don't just be following me blindly. Oh no. It is a perfect example of when people don't know mechanics. So we're gonna let this boss get a ton of free damage on us. And re-engage. So yeah, if you want to learn how to tank, bring these AI in with you. Because it'll teach you how to adjust for teammates that don't know how to do anything. 10 out of 10 would not actually recommend if you want to enjoy breezing through early level content. Now, if you're doing the actual squadron stuff, this is a very easy way to level up your squadrons. They get a pretty decent chunk of experience for each dungeon clear you do. Make sure to give that wide. We're just gonna tank this damage. I don't care enough to be chasing those guys. One thing you'll notice that that Conjurer is actually casting their DPS abilities. Now for the third phase of this, he will not go invulnerable, but he will be spawning these little minions. So the DPS will normally have to be targeting. I want to see a limit break. Oh. Yeah, the DPS will normally be targeting those guys, but that's the dungeon. It's when you're doing it with real people, it's very quick, very easy. I'm gonna go ahead and do another one of these, but the video is gonna be split. So if you're interested in watching the next one, it is the worst dungeon next to Copperbell Mines, and it's another lower level dungeon. So I will see you next time for... I can't pull up my dungeon list. I want to say it's 1,000 Miles of Totorock. So see you then.